Wait, me reach? Me reach already? Yo, me try set up, because I want to make sure me in place, me geared up and ready.
Geared up.
Yeah, man.
Geared
No,
up.
man, I have to gear up. I have to make sure my mirror check, my engine warm, everything together and thing. You have to get ready for this.
I don't think you understand what's happening. I think you're being mistaken. You know, we're not talking about driving.
What?
It's not driving.
I'm at the wrong place then.
Why? You know, we're not talking about no clutch and no accelerator. It's a different kind of movement we're doing today, you know.
No racing.
No racing.
Why?
Well, when you look at it that way, there will be movement, you know, but it's just not the car racing.
Tell me more about that.
Racing. All right, so, you know, instead of changing gears in the car, we are going to be changing levels in life today. Know that?
Definitely.
Right. And, you know, the truth is, anybody can start an engine, but not everybody prepares for the journey ahead.
And success doesn't come from speed alone. It comes from strategy, discipline, and knowing where to shift.
Knowing when to push.
And knowing when to grow.
And so today, we're not just here to talk.
We're here to equip,
to challenge,
and to inspire every single person in this room.
We're gearing up
to succeed.
Special welcome to everybody here today. Good morning, DCSers. Good morning, visitors.
Good morning, everybody.
Come again, man. We can do better than that. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Department of Communication Studies here at the Northern Caribbean University, we welcome you to DCS Symposium 2026.
It's a place and a space where ideas meet opportunity,
where
preparation meets purpose.
And where we all take one step closer to becoming the communicators we were created to be.
So sit back, stay engaged, and get ready, because trust me, this is one journey you want to get in gear for and to be geared up for. I am Leandre Samuels.
And I am Carissa Shaw, and we are your hosts for today's program. Now we get right into it. We have some special persons in our midst that we want to welcome. We have Mrs. Michaela Anderson, faculty member, producer for Symposium 2026, and peer sector leader. Welcome her. We have Ms. Noreen Daly, chair of our department, the Department of Communication Studies. We have our administrative assistant, Mrs. Charmaine Foster, and all other faculty and staff present today. We welcome you.
But you know, our family extends today a bit further than our Jamaican borders. And today we want to welcome especially Dr. Stephen Kaba, that's the chair of the Department of Communication and Arts at Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. Put your hands together. And also Ms. Paulette Gates, who is the assistant professor and film and television coordinator, also at Oakwood University. Please welcome them. Also, we have some persons who are joining us online on YouTube at NCU DCS TV. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Also, a little later on, we'll be having an outside broadcast, which will be on NCU FM, so you can tune in there as well.
And, you know, we have some persons who made today possible. We want to thank our sponsors. We have Nationwide News Network, NCU Alumni Federation, Clear Purpose Spring Water, and NCU Marketing Association. Put our hands together for our sponsors. Thank you. And of course, we have some special presenters with us. However, we'll be waiting a little down in the program, and we will be hearing the special introduction then. At this time, we will be having Dr. Vincent Peterkin, Dean of the College of Humanities, Behavioral and Social Sciences, who will be bringing greetings to us. Put our hands together for Dr. Peterkin.
Good morning. Distinguished guests, members of the university's administration, faculty colleagues, students, and especially the vibrant team from the DCS department. Grace and peace to you from our God and from our college. This morning it is such a tremendous privilege, and it's a pleasure for me as Dean of the College of Humanities, Behavioral and Social Sciences, to extend warm greetings to you at this significant occasion, the symposium embedded within the Week of Excellence, held under the compelling and forward-looking theme, Gearing Up to Succeed, GUTS. Let me begin by commending the Department of Communication Studies for consistently demonstrating creativity, relevance, and excellence in its programming. This Week of Excellence is not merely a calendar event. It is a reflection of your identity as a department committed to shaping voices, sharpening minds, and preparing communicators who can engage a complex and ever-changing world. The theme GUTS is both inspiring and instructive. Success, as we all know, does not happen by chance. It requires courage, preparation, resilience, and intentionality. It demands the kind of inner strength that pushes us beyond comfort zones, challenges mediocrity, and embraces growth even in the face of uncertainty. In many ways, communication itself requires guts. It takes courage to speak truth with clarity, to tell stories that matter, to advocate for justice, and to lead conversations that inspire change. As students and scholars of communication, you are being equipped not just with skills, but with a voice, and that voice carries responsibility. I encourage you, therefore, to fully engage in today's symposium, everything that will be offered. Ask questions, share ideas, challenge assumptions. Allow this space to stretch your thinking and deepen your commitment to excellence. Remember that what you are becoming is just as important as what you are learning. To the faculty and organizers, thank you for your dedication and thank you for your vision. Your investment in our students is shaping not only competent professionals, but also principled leaders. To our students, this Week of Excellence and today's symposium is for you. Embrace it, own it, let it propel you forward as you continue to gear up, not just for success, but for significance. May this symposium be impactful, enlightening, and transformative. Once again, on behalf of the college, I extend best wishes for a successful and enriching symposium. Thank you, and God bless you all.
I want to thank our Dean of Hubs for those inspiring words. So at this time, we're going to be continuing the program with Khalib Hyman and our co-host, Carissa Shaw, with a cultural item. And following that, we're going to have a presentation by Daniel Loban, who is a PR emphasis student. So please welcome them.
So this poem that we'll be doing, it is entitled Embrace Success. And so while we wait for the sound, this is just a poem encouraging us as students, as faculty and staff, that, you know, at the end of the day, we go through things and life can be challenging, or life is challenging, but we must remember that we have a goal, the finish line is near, and that we have to embrace success. follow good influence. Be good like the graduates. Lift up your hold each other hand. Together we can do the victory dance. Together we can do the victory dance. You can do it, can do it, can do it. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. With God you can do it, can do it, can. If you can go through it, then you can grow through it. Me used to love fight and love chat. A girl diss me punch that. Teacher call me like a head done spot. Burning gaba was my comfort.
As me see a cute boy, me turn fool. A regular, me used to go school. It shop punk on a whole tool. Never abide by no rule.
Clothes and shoes was my thing. Shorts up cause me love show my skin. Me never business about self-worth. Taking my blouse and cut my skirt.
Me never knew how me supposed to dress. Follow a friend and a bubble in a coaster bus. Back and forth from town to country. No go no school and no follow bad company.
We did rude out of this dimension. Give we parents stress, hypertension. Do some things too sick to mention. Until the most I had intervention. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. If you can go through it, then you can grow through it. DCSers, I wonder if you mad. You know the right and still I do bad. Look at the failures that you had. Embrace success through God. Those who go through it are the best to be.
Giving you this testimony.
With God in your life, it makes sense.
Reach higher for excellence.
Cause you can be a lawyer, a doctor, fix bones with fracture, chiropractor, farmer, driving a tractor. Me fool you, me a actor. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. With God you can. With God you can do it, can do it, can do it. If you can go through it, then you can grow through it.
DCSs follow good influence.
Be good, like the graduates. Lift up your schoolmates, hold each other hand. Together we can do the victory dance. Together we can do the victory dance. Together we can do the victory dance.
Good morning, everyone. So, I'm going to be presenting a very, very short presentation on position papers. Now, I have a little surprise. Do you like surprises? I have a surprise for anyone who is able to answer 2 or more questions at the end of this presentation. Are you ready? Are you engaged? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. All right. So, a position paper is very important. Anybody ever heard of a position paper before? We ever said a word that before those words come together? So a position paper is a written document where you state clearly your stance on an issue and support it with evidence. It is important to note that a position paper is not opinion. It is about defending your viewpoints with logics, facts, and credible sources. My position is that university should be free. Is that a fact or is that an opinion? No. Position papers are used to persuade your audience, influence decision making, show critical thinking and research skills, and quite frankly, to state your position. When you're doing your position paper, it's important to understand that it should not be overly emotional. No, if your position paper is overly emotional, it may be more of a debate or an argument and not a position paper. Ideally, you want to start off with your introduction, and then your paragraphs, and then there's something very important that I believe you should add, which is your counter argument. So if you state your position, you must be able to look critically, not just from your point of view, but also the point of view of people who may disagree with you. Some common mistakes to avoid: being too emotional, not using credible sources, ignoring the opposite side, and having a weak or unclear thesis. So just some examples of positions. The position: the government should invest more in social intervention programs, not just policing to reduce crime. That is a position. Counter to that, if it was my opinion, I would say, I think that the government should put more people in jail. That is my opinion. Position: dancehall should not be heavily censored because it reflects Jamaican culture and social realities. And if I really want to back my position, I would find information from different points of views, preferably things that could be fact-checked and not just an opinion from my friend. So it could be that my position can only be backed by Janelle. And if my position can only be backed by Janelle, who is my friend, then it makes no sense because that is not an adequate position paper. Position: stronger regulations are needed to reduce misinformation on social media. What do you think I will need to support my position? So the position is: stronger regulations are needed to reduce misinformation on social media. What do I need to support my position? Other points of views? So I can go to my friend and hear what they have to say about it. So my friend, though credible, he said other credible point of views. So my friend isn't credible, is what you're saying. All right, I'll accept it. What else do I need to do to back my position? Provide examples of misinformation. That is great, a great example. Actually, another thing is, after getting my information from my credible sources, right? What are some credible sources? We have a lot of resources available to us. So what are some credible sources? News sources. So we believe that Nationwide is a credible source, yes? So we believe that Nationwide is a credible source. So if Nationwide, right, did an article, can I use that article in my position? It depends on what does it depend on? Who wrote it? Okay, which is a fair statement. He said it depends on who wrote it, because we have letters to the editor as well that may not necessarily reflect the views of Nationwide, right? So, we understand what a position paper is, yes? Yes? Who does a position paper? Everybody can do a position paper. The government does quite a few position papers from time to time. And I believe that DCS should do a position paper. You ready for my DCS position paper? The Department of Communication Studies is the best department at NCU. And that is not just an opinion, because we can back it with facts. Right? And if I can back my position with facts and present my argument, do you think my position paper will be solid? And another position that is near and dear to all of us is that NCU should be subsidized like other universities. We have a lot of information to back that by Nationwide, by other sources. Wait, let me check my sources back. I have my sources. No, it's not Nationwide. I think it was the Observer. Why I can't find my sources? Yeah. It was a news network. I'll find it back and repeat. But just to close off, as I wrap it all together, anybody can do a position paper. You can do a position paper. I can do a position paper. It is just to ensure that we are not too emotional. Sometimes when we do our positions, we turn them into arguments because we feel so strongly about our point. I know that we definitely agree that DCS is the top department. However, it should be backed by facts and not just opinion. So, my question that will win you the prize, can you present a position? No. That's it. One person to present the position, any position, and I'll give you a prize. Nobody wants the prize? You want to send me back to Kingston with the prize? Nobody wants the prize? Nobody wants to give me a position? I feel like there's a position over this side. Like I see the position coming. Oh, there's a position. Come, give us your position.
All right. My position. The government should implement more social intervention programs to address juveniles being engaged in crime.
Do we think that's a good position? Did you hear the position? That was actually a great position. Do you think your position can be backed?
Oh, yes. Mama still on the mic?
Yeah.
Yes, my position can be backed because we have a lot of students and a lot of youth who are currently wrapped up and tied up in acts that we would describe as criminal. Yes, yes. Can check the news sources like Nationwide News Network, yes.
Thank you so much. So she will get the prize. Wait, what do you? So she will get the prize. So thank you so much for. Yeah. Johnny, the prize will come. Don't worry. She don't trust me, guys. It's fine. So thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for your engagement. And remember, when you're doing your position papers, you can use credible sources like Nationwide and NCU Media Group. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
All right, thank you, Ms. Loban, for that presentation. At this time, we want to welcome our lovely UTech team here with us today. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate your presence here. Now, we'll be going out into our breakout or breakout groups. We are gearing up to succeed, and
we have some instructions for you because we don't want you to just, figure out where you want to go. Instructions are important if you want to go along on a successful journey, right? So the first breakout session, we're having 2 breakout sessions simultaneously. We are going to be having a breakout session for journalism and public relations students. This will be done at the Digital Education Center. And if you know where that is, very good. If you don't know, it is upstairs the library. It's above the DCS lab. I'm hoping I'm giving you the best instructions. So you can follow Mrs. Anderson. That's the best instruction, right? We can follow Mrs. Anderson for the journalism and public relations students. That will be done, moderated by Gabriel Morrison, a public relations student. And we're going to be enjoying a very important presentation from Mr. Steve Jackson from... Oh, so we're shifting it a bit. Okay, so I'm hearing updated information. So let's go again. So that means journalism and PR will stay here. So you will stay in the main chapel. Still with Gabriel Morrison, and it will be done by Mr. Steve Jackson from the British Broadcasting Corporation. But he will be introduced, both our presenters will be introduced formally by our moderator, so you can look out for that.
And our TV and radio students, we will be going to the
Digital Education Center.
Right. Our presenter is Mr. George Davis, who will be presenting on engineering personality, and the moderator is Matthew Wright, TV emphasis student.
So we hope you'll enjoy our breakout sessions. I hope you'll be informed and that you'll come away learning something new as you go along your journey and you seek to succeed. So we invite you to go to the different breakout sessions now.
You meet back here at 12 noon as we continue with our program. So you have 1 hour in that presentation, and then you meet back here at 12 noon. Thank you very much.
All right.
Brings you the Lunch Bag, a program to leave you full with goodies such as Money Matters, Tiny Bites, healthy snacks, a special film feature, and of course, the main course. This 30-minute delight will leave you wanting more. It's the Lunch Bag, every last Friday on the YouTube channel NCU TV Jamaica at midday. Come hungry and leave fully satisfied.
Get ready. On April 11 to 15, Week of Excellence returns with a powerful theme, Gearing Up to Succeed. Join us for a week designed to challenge, inspire, and elevate your purpose. Dr. Stephen Kaba, Chair of the Communications Department at Oakwood University, will bring to our church service wisdom, experience, and a message that will ignite your spiritual journey. Let your creativity shine at our DCS Social under the theme, No Pressure, Just Guts, Crazy Hat, Socks, and Tie Edition. For our community convo, we will focus on the theme, Breaking the Silence, Men's Mental Health and the Stigma of Seeking Help. This will take the style of a town hall conversation and will create a safe space for dialogue and awareness. Join us for Global Connections, where we will hear from industry professionals such as John Paul Anderson, millionaire social media marketer and entrepreneur, Stephen Stanberry, digital story strategist, and Carl Brown, digital storyteller and AI specialist CEO. Get ready for Showcase My DCS under the theme, The Communication Quest. Our symposium keynote speaker and masterclass presenters, Mr. Stephen Jackson, Senior News Editor at BBC World Service Bulletins, and George Davis, Engineering Personality of Nationwide News Network, will come and share global insight, powerful storytelling, and the mindset it takes to succeed on any stage. Mark your calendars. Don't miss Week of Excellence 2026, April 11 to 15, as we gear up to succeed. Sponsored by Nationwide News Network, Central Florida Alumni Federation, Manchester Annex Company Limited, and Clear Purpose Water. Be there.
Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. So good morning, our viewers, those who are joining us live via YouTube and Instagram. Welcome to Week of Excellence Symposium 2026, presented by the Department of Communication Studies at Northern Caribbean University. I am Gabrielle Morrison, and we know that this year's theme is what? Gearing up to succeed, guts. And the funny thing about this is that it's not just a creative acronym, it's a challenge, because gearing up means that you're intentional, you're actively pursuing and equipping yourselves with the necessary tools and resources needed for you to advance. Now, here is your first task for this morning. I want you to describe your weekend in exactly 6 words. So not 10, not an essay, not a paragraph, 6 words, and your 6 words should formulate a sentence that makes sense. Who is up for the challenge? Yes, to describe your weekend. Yes. Well, it was a good weekend. All right, that's okay. Thanks for that one. Anybody else? I love that one. Well, the 6 words that described my weekend were: God answered prayers, I forgot praying. So those are the 6 words that I would use to describe my weekend. Now, with that being said, today I am joined with a professional in the field of journalists, one who understands the anatomy of elevated writing, and he knows how to position himself as it relates to what contributes to great writing, the ability to cut out the noise, and just to present the facts and what is necessary. Now, Mr. Steve Jackson, he works for the BBC for 3 decades, starting as a production assistant for a small local station in 1995. He now runs the news desk for the BBC World Service, a 24-hour operation with a daily English language audience of 85 million listeners. He manages a team of 60 journalists broadcasting news bulletins and summaries across the world every half hour. In the course of his career, Steve has edited and presented radio news programs, organized outside broadcasts, and worked as a specialist reporter on the Asia-Pacific region. In his current role, he recruits and manages journalists from apprentice level upwards. Now, one of the most rewarding aspects of my working life has been spotting talented young reporters and producers helping people to progress in their career, he says. When you start out in a rapidly changing industry, it can be difficult to know how to make an impact, but hard work and attention to detail, it always pays off in the end. It is also important to stay true to your values and ensure that your work is a force for good in this world. Help me welcome Mr. Steve Jackson. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Gabrielle, and good morning to everybody. I'm very happy indeed to be here to talk to you about what makes good writing, because for many media professionals, it's the single most important skill that we rely on. You may have found a great news story, but if you can't communicate it properly, nobody will care. Poor quality writing will soon lose readers. In public relations, if you send out a press release that's badly written, it will probably fall flat and have little impact. Most news websites measure the number of clicks they get on any given news story, but they also measure something they call stickiness, which is the amount of time that users spend on each page. If you have an eye-catching photo and headline, but nobody bothers to read the news article, then you haven't really done the job. People's attention spans are shrinking. I know my attention span is shrinking because I've spent so much time scrolling through lots of content, different news articles. And so when we come to our own writing, we have to make sure it's very good and concise, and it needs to do the following things. So it needs to engage the audience, deliver information clearly and concisely, and perhaps the most difficult bit of this is it needs to answer the question, why should I care? And keeping the sentences short and that sort of thing is all part of it, but we also need to be telling people, if we're bothering to flag up a news story to them, why should they care about it? So we've got to just give them some hints about why it's relevant, really. Now, writing is a craft. You have to work at it over a period of time and gradually improve your skills. I'm not going to make you a good writer just by what I tell you today, but I can give you some of the key principles to think about and some tips about how to improve your writing as you do more of it. But I do want this to be a practical session as well, so to help you, we'll look at some examples, and in a few minutes, I'll give you one or two things to do. I write a lot of short news stories for radio in my job, and I also edit a lot of stories that have been written by other people, and I can tell you that by far the most important thing to think about with whatever you're writing is the top line, the very first sentence. The top line is doing, as they say, all the heavy lifting. It's the bit of the story which most people are going to read, and when you write something, you need to consider what you would say if that sentence was the only thing that people were going to hear or read. If it's too complicated a sentence, you'll lose people, so it needs to be fairly short and punchy. It needs to say what has happened and explain why it matters in simple, plain language. It needs to cut out any unnecessary details, and as a general rule, it should be written in the active voice rather than the passive voice. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. So here is just one example of the difference between a top line that will lose people and one that will engage them. Actually, that's not the right slide there. I think we're missing that one, but I'll go back and I'll read it to you anyway. So if you were to write a story, there's been an announcement today regarding future plans for local transport infrastructure. That kind of sounds, you after hearing that sentence, you think, maybe what's that all about? So a much better line, you could have picked this out from the same information. Bus fares across the city will rise by 20% next month, hitting commuters and students. And so those two things have come from the same original source material, but either the first one is not going to get people engaged and the second one is going to be of much more interest. So you can see that the difference there is very clear. In the first one, they've kind of lost you. In the second one, where they talk specifically about what the impact will be, what the practical impact will be, and who will be hit by the bus fare rises. They've made that the important bit, and that's what's going to grab people most. And in radio, where I work, if the listener can't understand the top sentence easily, then you've lost them already, and for the rest of the story they'll be thinking, what was that I just heard? Well, you know, I'm lost now. So back to the active voice thing that I mentioned a moment ago. Here's an example of what I mean. So if you write something I was going to give this to you actually as an exercise, but it's come up with my version of it as well at the same time. But if you have an exercise, if you have a sentence which reads, the historical documents that had been hidden in the attic for over 50 years were finally discovered by a local historian during the renovation of the mansion, that's quite a long sentence. And it might be better to make it a more active voice, because you can see that the historian, who's the key person in the sentence, is sort of buried halfway down that first one. If you start off with, the historian discovered the documents that had been hidden in the attic for more than 50 years during the renovation of the mansion, that's just a more straightforward way of doing it. It gives you a more readily understood sentence, and it's more economical. It uses fewer words. So although there may be occasional exceptions to this rule, in the majority of cases, if you can use the active voice, that works better for news and public relations writing. This is the example that I'd come up with, and I think you can probably see how that works. But you could easily have, many other examples, even just in one short sentence. You could have, the cat chased the mouse, that would be in the active voice, or the mouse was chased by the cat. So that's just another example of how to try and do it in the active voice there. So moving on to how to make your writing clear. If you want to help the reader, which is what you do, or the listener or the viewer, there are just a few simple things you can do to help there. You can prioritize shorter words, avoid jargon, and use short sentences. So if you're talking about shorter words, you might, for example, replace the word demonstration with protest. So if you're talking about people going out to express their views on the streets, they're angry, a demonstration uses 4 syllables, whereas protest uses 2. And even just something that small and simple can make it shorter and easier to read. Another example, you could replace the word vulnerable with weak, so it cuts it down from 4 syllables to 1 syllable. Jargon covers a wide variety of different terms, so that can be either things that are too technical or too informal for professional media writing. So in medical jargon, someone might talk about a myocardial infarction. And I don't know about you, but I'd be left thinking, what's that? I don't really understand that. Well, it's more usually known just as a heart attack. So you'd never really write about a myocardial infarction in a news story or a press release. Likewise, you could talk about to keep someone in the loop. And you could probably better just say, keep them informed, because it's cutting out that jargon there. So on the length of the sentences, it's usually best just to aim for one idea per sentence. So there's an example up on the screen here, just in case you can't read it. The minister, who was speaking during a visit to the region amid growing pressure from opposition parties, said funding would be reviewed. That's quite a long sentence. You want to try to make it shorter. You could just break it down, easier to read. You break it down into 2 sentences. The minister said funding would be reviewed. He was speaking during a visit to the region after criticism from opposition parties. So next, we'll talk about the structure of what you write. Obviously, this varies quite a bit depending on whether you're writing a short news story or a press release or whatever else you're doing. But there is a standard structure that's widely used in news writing, and definitely in the short stories that my team write for radio. You put your most important information in your top line, then you add your other key details in the next sentence or 2, And finally, you provide the background and the context lower down the story. So this way, a listener can switch off or zone out during any point in the story, but they will have still made sense of whatever bit they listened to. So here's an example of a story my team wrote last week that uses that structure. You may be able to just see there. So at the top, we have the top line, which I talked about before. The Italian fashion house, Dolce & Gabbana, has confirmed that one of its co-founders, Stefano Gabbana, has stepped down as chairman. So if that was all you heard, you'd still kind of have a good idea what it was about, and you'd go away, and if someone was saying, what did you hear in the news, you might be able to say that. But then if you've got more space, you've got room for a little bit more information. So you would say the luxury brand said he'd resigned from his corporate positions in January, but remained with the firm in his creative capacity. And that there is your extra bit of information. Mr. Gabbana and his former partner Domenico Dolce co-founded the brand more than 4 decades ago. So that's where you start to get into a little bit of context for anybody who wants it. And maybe people will have tuned out, they won't be listening at this point, but if you're still interested in the story, that's a useful thing to know. And then finally, a little bit of information about the fashion industry in general, saying many top fashion houses have struggled in recent years due to a slump in the luxury market. So you can see from that the broad story structure, and you can maybe also see that it isn't perfect. So when I look at that, it raises a question for me about what it means that he's remained there in his creative capacity. So if I was an editor and I was rereading that or checking it, I might try to find out a little bit more about what that means. So can we just say, make it a little bit simpler and say, he'll still be working on the firm's clothing designs instead of leaving it vague like that? So that brings me to another thought about writing. As part of the craft, you have to start with something. So most people have a first go at writing what they want to say, and then they go back and improve it. And this is really important skill, to be able to self-edit. For me, when I'm trying to write something, I always write it down first, and then I go back over it again and again until I'm satisfied. And often that process enables you to sort of find and take out any elements of the story that don't quite make sense, or sometimes it helps you to explain it better. Sometimes you notice something that isn't right. But if you do that, go over it again and again, you're more likely to spot mistakes. And it's the same process you'd use if you were looking over someone else's work and editing it, but you're doing it to your own writing. So the next point I'd like to talk about is about accuracy in your choice of language. So you may have written a really beautiful story that Shakespeare would have been proud of, but if it contains factual errors, then it's no good. Here's an example. This is really about the fact that if you look at it, the first quote on the left-hand side quotes the opposition leader as saying, "I don't think this policy will work." But if you look at the slightly longer quote on the right, that's actually what the opposition leader said. "I don't think this policy will work unless it's properly funded and independently monitored." So you can see that if you just use the first quote, you haven't really accurately represented what the opposition leader said. And in a way, you've kind of been unfair to the opposition leader there because you haven't given all the context. So that's really just an example of that. Another point to consider, and this is something all of us struggle with when we're writing, is to avoid the temptation to exaggerate. So when you're writing a news story, obviously you're writing the story to tell people what's going on, but you're also trying to justify why you've written the story. Because as a journalist or in public relations, you've got to sort of show that it's worthwhile and that you've got something to tell people. But obviously, there is a danger when you're doing this that you end up going too far and you end up stating it too strongly or you exaggerate it. So finally, when it comes to accuracy, we need to watch out for loaded words or phrases and try to stick to neutral phrases. So if you write that somebody claimed they were not involved in a scandal, that word does imply a little bit that there's an element of doubt and that maybe we don't quite believe them. So better to use neutral language if you can and write that they said they were not involved or they've denied being involved. So another thought here about how to keep your writing lively and eye-catching. You need to keep it focused on people wherever you can. It's hearing other people's stories and experiences that makes a story more relatable. So I like to use every opportunity to put in descriptions of what people have seen or felt about something that's happening. And for journalists covering the US-Israeli war with Iran, for example, one of the biggest problems has been that it's been very difficult to talk to Iranian citizens about what they've experienced. The internet is cut off in Iran, and it's dangerous for them to talk to journalists. So as a result, we lose something of the human impact of that conflict. So describing a scene or event is very important, and with that Iran story, we've tried everything we can to try to speak to people in Iran who can describe what they've been going through. It's another example. Here is a news story that my team ran last Sunday about the astronauts from the Artemis 2 mission. And just in case you can't read it, I'll read it out. NASA has welcomed home the 4 astronauts of the Artemis mission at a rapturous reception in Houston after they made it safely back to Earth from the far side of the moon. They were greeted with rousing applause by those assembled, who included their family members. The mission commander, Reed Wiseman, told his fellow crew that they were now, as he put it, bonded forever. Victor Glover expressed his gratitude to everyone who worked on the mission. And Christina Koch said she was struck by all the blackness around planet Earth, which appeared like a lifeboat hanging in the universe. So if you were playing the audio or video of them talking, you wouldn't need to describe the applause, but otherwise you do need it to paint a picture of what's going on and of the scene there. And of course, the rest of what they've been talking about there is just an example of making it human. They're giving you their own thoughts and experiences, and it's really valuable to hear those. So I've got a little exercise to do for you now, which is just a short thing to think about, and maybe when I've spelled it out, you can talk to the people next to you about how you might do it. But the reason I've chosen this example is because it's the kind of scenario you might get as a journalist or in public relations, where you have to respond to something very, very quickly. So I'd like you to imagine that you're on duty in a newsroom with a radio bulletin due to go on air in 5 minutes' time, and a news release has just appeared on the news agency wires from the White House announcing that Donald and Melania Trump are separating. They'll no longer be a couple. I should stress that this is a made-up scenario, and there's no suggestion at all that this is going to happen. So you've got 5 minutes to write something down, or if you've got your phones, maybe you can scribble something there. So you've only got time to really write 2 sentences. The first sentence has to tell the story, and the second sentence should be context. So you can use your phones if you like to do Google search to help write the line of context. But remember all the things we've talked about so far. You just want something that's a short sentence, plain language, and with a little bit of context to tell you why it matters, really. So I'll sit down for a few minutes now. You can talk to whoever's next to you if that helps, or you can just do it on your own, whichever you prefer. And then if 1 or 2 people want to come and read out what they've written, we can talk about them. So I'll give you 5 minutes from now. And imagine you're on air, so it's a precise deadline.
It's not just the bruises on the body that hurts. The wounds of the heart, the scars of the mind are important too. If you or anyone that you know is suffering from a mental disorder, please to contact this mental health unit at www.moh.mov.jm. Don't neglect your mental health. Your mental health, your priority.
Week of excellence, them can't pass without consent. Come out and be proud cause we're magnificent. All of these years full up of talents. Week of excellence, come from the hills, the valley mountains. Show everybody, bring all of your friends. Make this song be a new anthem. Week of excellence, them can't pass without consent. Come out and be proud cause we're magnificent. All of these years full up of talent.
In a world connected by screens, where actions online have real-life consequences, think twice, post once, be mindful online. Your words matter. Negative interaction can impact someone's mental health, but positive is powerful. Choose encouragement, spread kindness. Your action shapes the online world. Be the reason someone smiles.
Nowhere in the corridors of pale green and gray. Nowhere in the suburbs, in the cold light of day. There in the midst of it, so alive and alone. Words support like bone. Dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out. Dreaming of mercy. Week of excellence, them can't pass without consent. Come out and be proud cause we're magnificent. All of these years full up of talents. Week of excellence, come from the hills, the valley mountains. Show everybody, bring all of your friends. Make this song be a new anthem. Week of excellence, them can't pass without consent. Come out and be proud cause we're magnificent. All of these years full up of talent. Week of excellence, them can't pass without consent. Come out and be proud cause we're magnificent. All of these years full of talent.
Get ready. On April 11 to 15, Week of Excellence returns with a powerful theme, Gearing Up to Succeed. Join us for a week designed to challenge, inspire, and elevate your purpose. Dr. Stephen Kaba, Chair of the Communications Department at Oakwood University, will bring to our church service wisdom, experience, and a message that will ignite your spiritual journey. Let your creativity shine at our DCS Social under the theme, No Pressure, Just Guts, Crazy Hat, Socks, and Tie Edition. For our community convo, we will focus on the theme, Breaking the Silence, Men's Mental Health and the Stigma of Seeking Help. This will take the style of a town hall conversation and will create a safe space for dialogue and awareness. Join us for Global Connections, where we will hear from industry professionals such as John Paul Anderson, millionaire,
So that's the
social
5
media
minutes
marketer
up now.
and entrepreneur.
So you can see
Stanbury,
how much of a
digital
pressure it
story
is having
strategist,
to come up with
and
something
Carl
in
Brown,
such a
digital
short space of time.
storyteller and AI specialist CEO. Get ready for Showcase
Has anybody
Night.
got one they would like to come and read out? Do you want to come up?
All right. Hi, everyone. So my own is The White House has announced that President Donald Trump will be separating from his First Lady, Melania, or wife. The couple have been married since 2005 and have one child, Baron Trump.
Well done. I think that's a really good example there. Well done, Nico. Would you like to do yours?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So mine is, good morning, sorry. So, America will continue to be great despite the separation of President Trump and his wife, Melania. The announcement came following the recent release of scandalous pictures from the highly controversial Epstein file.
That's a different way of doing it there, but that's good. Anybody else got one they want to share?
Mine is not that spicy. Reports from the White House indicate that former president... He's not former. Sorry. I put the former in the wrong place. Reports from the White House indicate that President Donald Trump and former First Lady Melania Trump are separating after 25 years of marriage. Sources close to the situation suggest the decision was mutual and both parties are requesting privacy at this time.
I like that too. And actually, you hit on something really important there, which is at the time you've got to get this on air, maybe she's still the First Lady, maybe she isn't, nobody knows. So you picked up on that, that's an issue. And a lot of the time where you've got these breaking news scenarios, you don't have answers to all of these things. So you just have to kind of keep it as simple as you can and just try to stick to what you do know. But sometimes it makes it very difficult. It's a really interesting thing. Any others? Yeah?
President of the United States Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump are separating after 25 years of marriage, according to a statement from the White House. The announcement was made by an official news release. In a hot, but a two-sentence.
Very well done to all of you there. I mean, you can see, I wanted to do that really because that's kind of the sort of thing that my team literally do every day. And there's something I'll come back to when I'm speaking later this afternoon, but it's easy to make mistakes because you're doing it in such a hurry, and sometimes it's really, really hard to know exactly what's the right thing to say. But anyway, we'll move on now because just before I finish, I just wanted to talk a little bit about writing press releases, and this is obviously from a public relations point of view. I'm a journalist, so I haven't studied PR in any detail. What I do know about is press releases because I've received thousands of them in my career. And some journalists, they don't really like press releases. They sort of think, oh, someone is trying to push a line at me here. They want me to say something, but I don't think that's what the story is, and they should have told it in a different way. So all the lessons that we've just talked about good news writing still apply really when you're writing a press release. If you want to get your message across, keep it nice and simple and give it the right structure. Lots of journalists, I don't really want to say this, but some journalists are a bit lazy and they might not even read to the bottom of the press release. And some journalists are so lazy that they'll be delighted that you've done the job for them and they'll just write up your press release exactly as you've done it for their news outlets, almost word for word. So either way, when you write a press release, you just need to think like a journalist if you want them to take notice of your messaging. So I literally, just before I left work the other day, I picked this example. It was completely at random. It was just the first press release that kind of came up in my news list. And I'll just have a look at it and talk you through what I think when I see it. But basically, the top line of it says, the 17th Wild Horse Reserve in Central Europe has been established. with the help of the conservation organisation European Wildlife. And then, I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's quite long, but I'll just talk you through my sort of thought processes when I see that. So the first thing is, it's the 17th wild horse reserve in Central Europe, and I'm, as a journalist, I'm thinking, well, I might have been a bit more interested if it was the first one. If it's the 17th, is that news anymore? So they've kind of made a bit of a mistake, and this is a genuine press release put out, without wishing to sort of embarrass anybody. I don't think they'll know I've used this. But, you know, the 17th is not really going to sell the story, because you're going to think, well, this is something that's been happening already. But anyway, when they get into the main body of the text there, it's a little bit better, because they talk about it being a new wild horse reserve. They describe the area where it was, and they give a little bit more detail about, you know, about the reserve itself. So if I'm working in a newsroom, and it's probably, if it's a busy day and there's lots of other things going on in the world, I'm still going to think, oh, you know, I'm probably not going to write that up as a news story. But let's just say it was a really, really quiet day and we were struggling to fill our news bulletins. You might look at that and you might just think, well, you know, if you take out the 17th, it's kind of nice story that someone is going to the trouble to conserve wild horses, and maybe we'll write this up. You know, maybe we'll just do a short story about it, and then it will make the news, which is what obviously they were sort of wanting to set out to do when they made the press release. And there's a little bit of other detail kind of lower down that you could use if you wanted to, about what the reserve's going to achieve, you know, and how it sort of plays a wider role in conservation. So that's just one example there. But I think we're out of time really now. Before we go on, does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Otherwise, I know Gabrielle has got plenty more to do. So if anybody has any now, you can ask now, or otherwise I'm happy to talk to everybody and take more questions later. Should we carry on? Yeah.
What an insightful presentation, don't you agree? Now we're going to continue on the same wavelength. We're going to be going into our practical segment. Now this segment characterizes of 3 main activities. We're going to have our editorial meeting, or breaking news, and the activity that is called From Tedious to Pulsating. I'm going to invite Mr. Jackson to join me, as he will be the editor for our first activity. So you can feel free to scan the screen so you have access to the presentation. All right, are we all set? All right, awesome. So activity number 1, the editorial room or meeting. So what I'm going to do, like we already have 2 groups, so you're going to work in your groups. So a government minister is photographed at a private party on the same night a national curfew went into effect. An anonymous source sent the photo. You cannot verify their identity. Now, the ball is in your court. What do? Do you run the story or do you hold it? Now, you have 4 minutes to make your call. If you decide to run it, then you have to defend your stand. Defend your position, because there is no neutrality in the newsroom. Number 2, if you decide to run it, you have to craft your headline and also talk about the angle that you're going to position this story. You have 1 minute remaining. Okay, time is up. All right, so who is ready to present? We can have one representative from each group. Group A or Group B? All right, so Group A is ready.
All right, so because news station A was not able to verify the minister in the picture, we have decided it is not ethical to run the story. So we will not be running that story at all. Full stop. Probably B will run it because they have more information, but we don't have any more information, so we're not running.
Newsroom A is also of the view that we should not run it, we should hold it. Reason being, as it stated, the identity of the individual cannot be verified. Yes, it was sent in by an anonymous source, but the identity of the person rumored to be the government minister, their identity cannot be verified. So it wouldn't make sense to run it and put your company also at risk of being sued by putting out a rumor or further feeding a rumor that the government minister is at this private gathering.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're moving on to our second activity, which is breaking news. Are you able to see clearly, or do you want to scan? Okay, so for the breaking news activity, you are presented with the facts, the what, the when, the where, why does it matter. Now, what you're tasked to do is to write a headline of this news story as well as your lead. So just the headline and lead. So it's really up to you. Is it a case that Group A wants to do the natural disaster, Hurricane Melissa, or you're looking at diplomacy? Yes. Okay, so for Group A, I am going to give you the natural disaster, and then Group B can look at the political crisis. Yes, headline and lead. You have 2 minutes remaining. A minute remaining. All right, so time is up. And this time we will start with Group B. Is there a representative from Group B? Group A, are you ready? All right, Group B, we're still waiting on you. All right, can we go with Group A? Group B isn't ready.
All right, thank you. So we have as our headline, Hurricane Melissa leaves 45 dead after landfall in southwestern Jamaica. As our lead, we have 25,000 are displaced and 45 dead following the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa on Jamaica in late October.
All right, thank you very much. Excellent work. Moving on to Group B.
CARICOM crisis. TNT Prime Minister skips key emergency summit. All right, yes. CARICOM boycotted by Prime Minister Kamala Persad Besasar on April 13, 2026 for the 25th special emergency meeting.
All right, thank you so much for all the persons who participated and the groups. So with the few minutes that we have left, I'm going to invite Mr. Jackson because the floor is now open for Q&As.
Just before we have any questions, I'd just like to say that was really impressive, the exercises you just did. You know, some of them were good enough to have kind of gone on air straight away, I think. Maybe a little bit of refinement to one or two, but honestly, really, really high standard, and I'm genuinely very impressed. So well done. Does anybody have a question? Gabrielle.
So the question that I have is that as a journalist, you have recruited many individuals from different levels. What is the single biggest mistake young writers make, and what opportunity does it really cost them?
That's a really good question. I'll be talking a little bit about this later on, but actually I would say, the single biggest mistake, we do writing tests for our journalists because I think unless you've seen how they write, I can't work out how they're going to perform in the job they'll be doing. And with the writing tests, rushing and not looking carefully at what the question is, that's the thing. Because I've seen some very good writers, they didn't read the question properly because they just piled into it in a hurry and started writing before they really gave it any thought. So I think if you ever get a situation like that where you've been asked to do a writing test, just take an extra minute to read the question really carefully, because it's so easy to go wrong just by misunderstanding it slightly or by not focusing on the main point of the question. Anybody else? Oh, yes. Sorry.
Right. I have a question. It's along the similar lines, but I guess on the other side. I'm a PR student, so what I want to know is what are some of the common mistakes that you have seen from PR professionals that are sending in their, wow, my brain is going blank. Their press releases, sorry, and how can we ensure that we don't make those same mistakes?
It's another good question. So I think, as I sort of said a moment ago, you've got to think like a journalist. So if you want journalists to pick up the story that you're working on, and you want them to make something out of it, for obvious reasons, you would like to get the publicity for your client or whoever you're working for. So you have to just think, what is a journalist going to want to see? So sometimes if you get information, you might have, say, a really good person who you have got available for interview, but you've got to give the journalists all the hints that they want. The journalists might not be think they might sort of be busy, or they might be a bit confused about what the proposition is, and so you've got to almost spoon feed journalists with the information that you want them to have, but also that you think that they will want, and make it easy for them. You know, in a way, you're working for a client, but the journalists are your kind of bread and butter. You want them to pick up the stories, and so it needs to be something that they're not going to sit around and think, well, how am I going to make this work if it doesn't look like it works from what you get presented in a press release, you probably just go and move on to the next thing.
I'm a public relations student as well, and I'm listening to, of course, working on behalf of your client, but also giving the journalists what they want. And when it comes to public relations, you know, you have to focus on the reputation of your client or the institution or organization you're representing. But on the other hand, the journalist wants a story that, of course, will make sense to them from their perspective. Transparency is key, but also you have to protect the reputation of whom you're acting on behalf. How do you find that balance? Of course, the organization would already agree on what they want to put out, but thinking like a journalist, they are looking for something hot, crisis. How do I find that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think because obviously, to some extent, the journalist is more interested in their story than they are in the reputation of your client. So I think you have to kind of, when you're planning what your campaign in whatever form it's going to take, I would say that you just have to think really, really carefully. What is a journalist going to do with this? I mean, there's never any guarantee. Mostly journalists, if there's a PR campaign, they can see it's a PR campaign and they're thinking, can I use this? Is there a story in this for us? But if you obviously have to think about the reputation of your client as well. So you might just be thinking that extra level, like asking yourself, is there any problem with my client? Is there something about my client that journalists might want to go for? If it's something like the example I just gave you, and it's a wildlife charity, by and large, journalists are going to kind of take it at face value. But if you're acting on behalf of a big personality or a business leader, what a journalist, if you say a journalist might decide to put your client on air and talk to them a little bit about the things that you've suggested, but what's the next thing that they're going to move on to want to talk about instead? Is there some problem, what about the company's financial situation, or is there something sort of waiting in the wings that the company has done that might have annoyed some customers sometime? And you've just got to be across all of these things and troubleshoot them before they happen, I would say. Make sure it's kind of like making a war game, really. You have to think, well, what would happen? And then also brief your client. If they ask you about this, what are you going to say? And make sure that they're prepared for that. Thanks.
Okay, so I haven't selected my emphasis as yet, but I am leaning to journalism. So where do you personally draw the line between public interest and someone's right to privacy? Because if you know a true story will cause chaos, but hiding it protects stability, which one is really more ethical?
That's a great question, and I don't know how much you know about the BBC that I work for, but it is a publicly funded broadcaster. It's paid for by a license fee that each person with a television or watching BBC content online has to pay. And public interest journalism is absolutely at the heart of what we do. And so I think, I have to be honest, that there isn't really a kind of firm rule about it. Each situation and each story is unique. And, you will find a lot of times that we have a very sort of strong tabloid media in the UK, newspapers that will run a lot of scandal stories. And with the BBC, we're very, very careful. When we look at those stories, we will not do them unless there's a public interest. So two celebrities, doing something that's caused outrage, people might read it. If it's not got a public interest element to it, we wouldn't do it. I mean, the public interest, there are times when the public interest is really obvious, like in Gabrielle's example. If, let's just say that the minister was caught at a party in defiance of a curfew and you did know that the source was accurate and you could prove it, there's an obvious public interest there. Let's just say the minister had done something a bit different maybe and wasn't breaking the curfew and had gone to a party and, you know, behaved in an inappropriate way in some way. He's still a government minister, or she is, and you have to, you know, think, you have to weigh it up really carefully. What was it that they did? Is that something that any of us might do, or is it something that we can hold them to account for? And then there are just times when there is no public interest, and even though you think it might be interesting to people, you sort of think, well, that's about their personal lives, or, you know, it's not something that has wider relevance, so maybe we won't touch it. Good question, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Steve Jackson. We can all agree that today's session was truly enlightening.
All right, Steve. This question actually came in from one of our online viewers, and they're asking, since the credibility of traditional news has been questioned, should there be concern within the journalism industry?
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely something that is a huge issue. People questioning the credibility of sometimes they talk about mainstream media, and that's sometimes used in Britain and the US to mean it's a way of questioning those organizations. But actually, I think the sort of problems about getting accurate information are more serious than ever, and actually this is where journalism is really important. You know, and of course journalism isn't the only thing. We rely on our radio and TV stations as well to be telling the truth. And if we sort of start relying on new sources of information, you know, all of the things that get spread on social media, it's a risk. So in a way, I think journalism, there are questions about how journalism is done, but I think it is more important than ever because we need good journalists and people doing an honest job to try to offset all the disinformation and misinformation that's out there. Thanks.
All right, is there any more questions? Okay. So we want to thank Mr. Steve Jackson wholeheartedly for taking the time out to give such an impactful presentation. Indeed, we were truly enlightened as it relates to the criteria and the necessary elements that are needed in order to craft elevated writing. Indeed, we're truly thankful. And at this moment, I invite everybody to give a round of applause. Thank you very much for making Northern Caribbean University your choice, and particularly being a part of the symposium presented by the Department of Communication Studies. We're truly thankful, and I don't think words can really express the level of gratitude we have as it relates to you coming here and being so practical and giving credible examples. We're truly thankful. With that being said, we're very thankful for everybody who would have taken the time out to be a part of this symposium, to be a part of the breakout session for the PR and journalism segment. As we continue to gear towards succeeding, let us be intentional in our actions and to also craft the necessary skills and resources that are out there in order for us to advance. Thank you, everyone. Have for yourself a great rest of the day.
communication studies, devoted and committed to serve. We are the future. We continue to hone our craft to achieve greater success and we continue to strive for excellence. 3.5, nothing less. DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best.
DCS always have the victory. Them no know when next move is a mystery. Other department always try step to it, but them feel we left them in adversity. No one throughout the university we have the key. So we lock city always a strive, but some of them yet fissy. So we department full of ecstasy.
We continue to strive for excellence. 3.5, nothing less. DCS, DCS, we are the best. 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 We are the we continue to strive for excellence. 3.5, nothing less. DCS, DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best. Department of Communication Studies, devoted and committed to serve. We are the future. We continue to hone our craft to achieve greater success and we continue to strive for excellence. 3.5, nothing less. DCS, DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best. DCS, we are the best.
DCS always have the victory. Them no know when next move is a mystery. Other department always try step to it, but them feel we left them in adversity. No one throughout the university we Some of them yet fissy. So with the bomb full of ecstasy.
We continue to strive for excellence. 3.5, nothing less. DCS, we are the best. 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 We are the we continue to strive.
Thank you to everyone for joining us here for our symposium. For those who missed our breakout sessions, we are here under the theme Gearing Up to Succeed Guts. At this time, we'll be having the moderators from the breakout sessions. They'll be quickly sharing with us what transpired during that session, and then we will turn over to Mrs. Michaela Anderson, who will be introducing our presenter, followed by an item, and then we will hear from Mr. Steve Jackson. So we'll now be having Ms. Gabrielle Morrison, followed by Mr. Matthew Wright. Please welcome them.
All right, so as it relates to the breakout session for PR and journalism, we can all agree that it was truly insightful. We looked at the elements needed as it relates to elevated writing, ensuring that we're always writing in the active voice. We avoid jargons and that we prioritize brevity. It is important to note that in today's day and age, our attention span, it is very short. So we have to hit it with impact and ensure that persons are wanting to be able to want to know more about what you have to say and ensure that it creates impact. So that's what was discussed in our PR and journalism forum with Mr. Steve Jackson. And the charge is that as students, we're supposed to gear up to succeed. And in order to do that, it is important that we remain intentional and always hone our craft.
Hello, everybody. So for our television and radio breakout session, our keynote speaker was Mr. George Davis from Nationwide News Network. And we focused on the concept of personality engineering. We defined the personality, which is really our state of being. And then to engineer that personality, which is really an AI term, but in the media space and any space that you go to, it is really tweaking parts of who you are to suit the agenda of where you are or the societal culture of where you are without losing yourself. Because in a space that is so saturated, you still need some sense of individualism. And we also spoke about capturing your audience, because there are a lot of people who will listen to a broadcaster or watch a broadcaster, love what they say, but not like the person at all. However, so he used the example to say, I believe that the wall should be painted yellow, that the wall should not be painted yellow. It should be another color. And if you ask them why, you're gonna say, I don't know, which is very annoying. So you have to really, to capture the audience, if you're gonna have an opinion, you need to research, you need to back it up, and you also need to have a hook. Just like in journalism, you have a lead for your news story, the same you have to have a hook for your personality, so it shines through and you capture and keep your target audience. We also had an icebreaker that was very well done, where we simulated being live on a production and the teleprompter just went splat. And our volunteers did very, very, very well. The future of television and radio broadcasting is bright thanks to both institutions that are involved. I thank you very much.
For those of you who were in the elevated writing breakout session, I know you had a wonderful time with Steve Jackson, and the exercises that we did were phenomenal. Now, for those of you who were not here, this is specifically for you. Steve Jackson. He has been with the BBC for 3 decades. How many of us are 3 decades or older? Okay. He's currently running the BBC World Service, which is a 24/7 operations. And they host approximately 85 million listeners, and I am one of those listeners. I don't know if you are, but I listen to BBC Radio because there is an imagery that is placed in your mind that if you have not traveled the world, by the time you're finished listening to one of those presentations, the newscasts, the features, the stories, at the end of the day, you have traveled in your mind to those locations. Now, Steve is with us. One of his passions is mentoring young people, and that's the reason he traveled all the way here to be with us, so that he can present in a way where you, the younger generation, can learn from him and also tap into opportunities that may be available to you. Without further ado, Steve Jackson. Let's welcome him.
Thanks very much indeed, Michaela, and thanks very much to all of you for coming to listen. And thank you very much to the university for inviting me. It's a great privilege to be here. I've obviously only been here for a short time, but even in that time, I've seen an absolutely amazing amount of good work being done. And it really fills me with confidence to see all of you guys, to listen in on your conversations about, all the editorial issues we were just discussing, to see the radio station yesterday, the outside broadcast going on. It's all really, really impressive. So it's a great privilege for me to be here and to be able to talk to you. The reason I'm here, in fact, is because of a very brilliant former NCU student, Neil Nunes. I don't think any of you will remember him because he was here in 1999. But at that point, he was probably sitting here just as you are now, wondering what the future held for him and what sort of media job he might be able to get after graduating. Well, he's now a very well-known voice in British radio and one of the most prominent Jamaicans in public life in the UK. Neil is a newsreader and continuity announcer on Britain's biggest domestic radio speech station, Radio 4, and his voice is also known around the globe to people who listen to the BBC World Service. And that's the network I work for, and in fact the team I manage Neil is a part of. So I run the news desk for the network, and it was Neil who put me in touch with NCU. So there's going to be 4 parts to what I'm going to say today. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about what I do, but luckily for you, not in too much detail. After that, I'll be talking about some of the questions that I'm sure must be on your mind as media students. What do I have to do to succeed? What's the future for media graduates? Is AI going to take all the jobs? And how do you navigate a media career in such a crazy, fast-changing world? Once I've spoken about that, I want to give you all the best practical advice I've got from my years as a journalist to try to help you succeed. And I'm going to get down to some details at that point about how to get a media job, filling in applications, preparing for job interviews, what to say in the interviews, and how to get your work noticed. So at that point, if you want, you might want to take a few notes, but you don't need to do that just yet. And finally, after that, at the end, I hope to leave you with a few things to think about and hopefully some inspiration. So I'll start off with my own story, and I'll keep it short because I'm not one of the stars of the airwaves like George Davis or Neil Nunes. My career has been one of steady progress, no bolts of lightning or claps of thunder. I started out at the bottom as a production assistant when I was straight out of university. I took the first job I could because I wanted to work for the BBC. But if I'm being honest about it, the job wasn't exciting and it definitely wasn't well paid. It involved printing off scripts for program presenters, filling in forms, and editing tape. I don't know whether any of you know about this, but it was the 1990s and radio broadcasts were still played out over the airwaves from magnetic tape machines. So somebody had to stand there. I used to stand there with a razor blade, literally cutting the tape and sticking it to the next bit of tape, and that's how you edited a broadcast at the time. It was basically not that interesting as a job, but I worked hard, and eventually the boss noticed that I was doing a good job, and that opened up other opportunities for me. So what I know now, that I didn't really realize at the time, is that just by being in the right place in a big news organization, I was absorbing a huge amount of information and knowledge from the brilliant people around me. And that honestly counted for a lot more than I realized at the time. So at a later stage, after about 5 years in the job, I started reporting on the radio, and eventually I was asked to present a live news program on the BBC World Service. I was so pleased with myself. I thought I'd made the big time, but only a month later, the program was scrapped, and I've never been asked to present a program again. I don't think I was very good at it. So things went in a different direction for me. Now I manage a 24-hour news operation with 60 staff broadcasting to 85 million listeners around the world. We make a 5-minute news bulletin every hour of the day, every single day of the year, giving listeners a snapshot of what's going on in the world and trying to explain the big events and why the audience should care. And I guess in my job as a manager, I do a lot of problem solving for the team, but a lot of recruitment as well. So I hope that's where I can bring you some insights from my own experience about what news editors and media managers are looking for in their recruits. So what are the fundamentals of media success? Well, I think the first thing to stress is that you need to come up with your own definition of success, and this will be different for everyone because we all have different ambitions, different hopes and dreams, and different skills, different things that we're good at. Some people want to go and report live on television from the scene of dramatic events to tell the world what's happening. And then there are lots of people, more like me maybe, who don't want to be on the television. It's not that I wouldn't enjoy doing it sometimes, but I've just always felt like my skills lie in a different place. So audiences need to know what's happening, and my job really behind the scenes is to make sure that they're getting good news. And for a lot of people, getting a steady job is good enough. They'll be satisfied with work that keeps them engaged, allows them to meet interesting people and go to interesting places. And having the chance to develop your skills and gradually expand your career horizons can be very satisfying, because not everybody is really ambitious from the word go. Your goals for what you want from your work have to be personal, and it's always better to measure your success against your own goals rather than comparing yourself with other people. For every media superstar, there are 10 times as many people doing important work in the background. The main thing to stress here is that you need to think early on about what you want from your media career. Have an honest conversation with yourself about what your key skills are and where you'd like to be in 1 year's time, or 5 years' time, or dare I say it, even 30 years' time. You can always change course later, and many people do, but having a plan for where you'd like to go is a really good starting point. Having said all of that, one of the other fundamentals of media success is to be adaptable. Your own plan is only the first step, and your goals will need to evolve as time passes. Sometimes you'll change your mind about what you want from your career, and sometimes you'll discover a new skill or ability, something that you didn't originally realize you were good at. But just as often in this media world, circumstances outside your control will intervene. The company you're working for will restructure. New technology will change the way the job is done. Maybe family considerations will come along that limit where you can go or the hours you can work. But if you're open-minded and adaptable, none of that really matters too much, because you can rapidly find and adjust to a different path. Being adaptable means being ready to embrace change, even if it's something that was forced on you. The people who can look at a new situation and see the positives and find a new way forward are not only more likely to succeed, but they'll be happier in their careers too. If you can hang on to an adaptable mindset, even when the situation is looking bleak and everyone around you is feeling negative, it will be greatly to your benefit. This brings me on to changing technology, and especially artificial intelligence. As I mentioned earlier, in my 30-year career, there have been really huge technological changes. When I started in 1995, my boss in a local BBC radio station, he insisted that our team did not need email. It was a new technology and he didn't really see the point. So for my first few years, we did all our business over the telephone. And this obviously wasn't mobile telephones, it was landline telephones. We weren't allowed mobile phones either. Looking back now, this all seems ridiculous, and it makes me feel really old talking about this, but it does illustrate just how fast things have been changing. So I think there's no question now that AI is the next big thing that is going to change the media landscape, and maybe is already. But most of us don't really know exactly how it's going to change just yet. And I'm not an expert on this, and in fact, I'm sure that your generation is much better at using AI than mine. You know, you do sometimes hear dire predictions that AI is going to massively reduce the number of media jobs or even take over civilization. But I'm an optimist, and I think in the end, AI will be a very useful tool for media professionals, but I don't think it's ever going to be able to do the job to a satisfactory standard on its own. It's always going to need humans to look at what's written by AI and improve it, fact-check it, and inject a bit of humanity into it. Some media organizations have already been experimenting with AI content. I must say the AI-generated articles I've read have not been great. They look okay on the surface, but when you read them carefully, they don't have the same logical thread running through them that they would have had if they were written by a human, and the analysis can be a little bit wide of the mark. And then there are those ones, you know, even the ones that the companies that are doing it now have already had someone proofreading those things that are written. So, you know, if those are the ones that are proofread, I worry about the ones that haven't been. I guess most worrying for journalists and other media professionals are the AI hallucinations, factual errors and misunderstandings that creep in and need a human to edit them out. So while the technology is likely to improve, my guess is that a substantial human input will always be needed. And I think the people who learn how to use AI properly will be at an advantage in their work, but I don't think it's going to take over. Feel free to get in touch in 30 years' time and mock me if I've got this all horribly wrong. So back to those fundamentals. Next on my list would be work hard. It sounds fairly obvious, but I'd better explain what I mean. And I don't mean, because lots of people do this, I don't mean become a workaholic or let it take over your life. Most people do their best work when they're well rested, after a good night's sleep, and when work is in balance with the rest of their lives. What I'm talking about is staying focused on what you're doing and really thinking about it. Put the effort into that, whether that's your studies, whether that's preparing for a job interview or in your first media job. Pay close attention to the instructions you're given and take the time to think through how to do the best job possible. It may be that you just need to put in some extra hours sometimes, but it may just be that you need to talk to the right people to find out what you can do to improve your work. You can't rely on your own instincts alone, and you can learn so much from colleagues. The more you examine your own strengths and weaknesses, the better you'll get at whatever you're doing. The process of learning needs to last throughout your career. It's a well-known thing that young people learn much faster, so the people who work hard right from the start are building really strong foundations for the future. So that leads me on to the next fundamental: be prepared to take risks. The people who go cautiously through their careers, doing everything by the book, may be fine, but those who take calculated risks, who go out of their own comfort zones to try to find something new or find creative solutions to new problems, will have an advantage. I'm obviously not saying be reckless, but it does mean being willing to fail sometimes. You might approach someone senior in a new company or new organization to ask if they have any opportunities for you. 8 out of 10 times they'll say no, and maybe you'll feel a little bit rejected for a short time, or your confidence will take a hit. But sometimes things are meant to be, and you'll get the timing right and talk to them at the exact moment they're looking for someone just like you. I can tell you from personal experience that there are times when stressed out media managers just want the easiest solution to a problem, and that solution might be you. What starts out as a small opportunity can turn into a much bigger opportunity, so it's always worth pushing at the door that has a bit of light coming through it to see if it opens for you. Sometimes it won't, but from time to time it will. For human beings, progress has always come through trying things out, and that involves a lot of failure. You might get something wrong many times, but the first time you get it right, you've made a breakthrough. This can just as easily be applied to getting your first job as it can to big technological improvements. Some journalists spend months trying to get a single interview with a big name. The person may keep saying no, but if you persist and you keep trying to persuade them, especially if there's a public interest, it may be you that they think of first when they change their mind and decide they want to speak out. This kind of determination can feel uncomfortable. Most of us are polite and we don't want to hassle people, but if you do it the right way, it can deliver results. So before I move on to my practical tips for starting out, my final fundamental for media success is to stay humble and stay true to your values. You will make mistakes, we all do. And if you've got something wrong, the best option is to acknowledge it and learn. At the BBC, we try to be as transparent as possible, and if we've got something wrong in a story, we correct it openly. When events are moving fast around you and you need to get a story on air, the facts are not always clear, and sometimes it's hard to work out what's going on. We try to be upfront with our audiences about what we do know and also about what we don't know. So at this point, I'd like to tell you about Jonathan, who is reputed to be the world's oldest tortoise, estimated to be 193 years old. Earlier this month, the BBC, including my own team, and some other big media outlets like USA Today, reported that Jonathan had died, based on a tweet from the vet who looked after him. The problem was that Jonathan was actually still alive, and the vet who tweeted was actually a cryptocurrency scammer. We hadn't checked the details of the account that the tweet came from carefully enough. Jonathan's real vet then posted a proof of life picture showing a happy, healthy tortoise with the same day's news showing on an iPad. We'd been tricked, and it was embarrassing. Some other media outlets reported about our mistake. So when it goes wrong like that, there is no hiding. Even though the story was fairly trivial in some ways, we'd made a mistake. So we wrote a story on the screen explaining that we'd fallen for a trick, and the good news was that Jonathan was still alive. Journalism, as we've hinted at in some of the earlier sessions, journalism has a mixed reputation among the public, and I think that it's very important to keep in mind the fundamental point of a free media. At their very best, journalists hold people in power to account, uncover wrongdoing, support democracy and democratic values, and tell people's stories that need the world's attention. Other aspects of media work, including public relations, support the same values, helping good, honest organisations to get their message out, trying to make the world a better place. But there are forms of journalism and PR that can be exploitative and dishonest. You're all studying at a Christian university, and as you start out in your media careers, I'd urge you to stay true to the fundamental values NCU holds dear. Success doesn't have to mean that you're doing things that make you feel uncomfortable, that don't feel right. Think hard from the beginning what you're in it for and what you want your work to achieve, and this will help guide you on your career path. So now for the practical advice that I promised earlier. It may not get you your dream job immediately, but hopefully it will help you avoid a few pitfalls. So let's start with job applications. Obviously, you need to keep looking for one of the jobs that are advertised. Keep looking regularly, and as soon as you see one, do something about it. Don't do what a lot of people do and put off looking at it till later if you can help it, because that's more likely to result in a final rush last-minute application. Find out more about the organisation. Google it. Take a look at what it does. Make a note of the company's values so that you can refer to them in the application. If there's a contact name on the job advertisement, do get in touch with that person to make an inquiry. They may tell you something extra that will help with the application or interview, but just by getting in touch, they may make a mental note of your name and the fact that you've taken the trouble to make inquiries. If you know someone who may be able to help, talk to them. Maybe you have a friend who already works for the same company, or one of Miss Daly's contacts who also do that, who also work for a big organisation. The more information you can gather, the better. Maybe the company is going through a bit of a change, and you might be able to improve your application by showing that you understand the situation. So when it comes to filling in the form, read the questions very carefully and try to answer them as directly as possible. I've seen a lot of people put down large amounts of information about themselves without answering the specific questions on the application form. If there are lots of applicants, sometimes people like me have to find quite brutal ways to shortlist. So even a really good application may be rejected because it doesn't quite answer the question and you've got 40 other applicants. When it comes to what you write, keep it as short and punchy as possible. If someone shortlisting like me has to read through dozens of long applications, one that's a little bit shorter and comes to the point more quickly is likely to be more appealing. Spend some time going over and improving what you've written, and definitely make sure there are no spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, or sentences that don't make sense. You'd be amazed how many applications from experienced journalists that I've looked over that contain careless errors, which I'm sure the applicant could easily have spotted and removed if they checked it carefully enough. If you're applying for a job in a cafe, these small errors maybe don't matter so much, but in an industry where the quality of the writing is so important, you can't get away with mistakes. So now you've got over the first hurdle and you've been offered a job interview. As with the application form, time spent in preparing for the interview is a great investment. Think about what message you want to get over about yourself. Being enthusiastic is definitely a good thing, but it isn't enough on its own. You need to talk about your skills and what you'd bring to the job. And ideally, you need to give examples of times when you've used those skills in the past, maybe in the work that you've done here at NCU. As with the application, listen carefully to the questions that are asked. Sometimes just talking about the things you want to get over doesn't answer the question. So you may need to try to build your message into the answers or into answers that do address the questions. So I realise this all sounds like a lot to think about, and being interviewed for a job you really want can be a nerve-wracking experience. It certainly would be for me. So to make you feel better, remember that the interviewers will probably be taking your nerves into account, because most people do feel a bit anxious in this situation. The people who don't feel a bit nervous are probably either overconfident or not bothered about the job. You have to remind yourself that really you're just going to sit down with some people quite like you for a conversation. If you don't understand the question they ask you the first time, ask them to repeat it. If you want to make a note of the question on a piece of paper so you can refer back to it, that's fine. You don't have to answer instantly. If you need to pause for a few seconds to think, that's okay. If they ask about something you're not familiar with, it's better to be honest that you don't know and then try and glide sideways to talk about a related subject that you do know about. Try to keep your answers to a sensible length. Lots of people talk for a little bit too long, but I've come across a few people who've answered in just a sentence or two, which is quite difficult for interviewers because you then have to think of a follow-up question to get them to say something more. So there is a happy medium for most answers of between maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, no longer than that, I'd say. At a really basic level, don't forget to smile and be warm, friendly and polite when you arrive for the interview. Usually they'll chat to you a little bit before the interview starts to help you settle your nerves. How's your day going? Have you had to travel far to get here? And to go back to what I said before, remember just to calm your nerves by telling yourself that it doesn't matter if you fail. You did well to get a job interview in the first place, and there may be strong competition for the job. If it doesn't work out the first time, at least you've had experience of doing the interview, which will make you better the next time. If you don't get the job, just take the opportunity to ask the interviewers for feedback. Even just a few sentences in an email will give you some really important information that will help you to improve next time. And one final point to remember is that employers will have a whole load of considerations in mind that you don't know about. Maybe they've got a team that's very creative but a bit disorganized, and they're looking for someone very methodical to help keep things together. Maybe one of the candidates has worked in the team before and has the advantage of knowing what the job is like already. The important thing is not to blame yourself, not to let a rejection make you feel negative. It will be disappointing, but you can learn the lessons and turn it into something positive for next time. It's very rare to get your first dream media job first time round. It does take persistence and determination. So I'd like to finish by saying that you have every reason to start out on your media careers feeling confident. I've seen the work that a lot of you are doing just in the last day or two. You're at a very good university in a very good department that has a track record of producing successful people. The fact that you've studied here will tell employers that you've got a lot of potential. There will definitely be ups and downs in the process of getting a job and progressing through your career. That's to be expected. But you can do it and you will do it. You will meet lots of great people who can see your potential, who will want to help you along the way, and the rewards are great. To be frank, media jobs are mostly a lot more lively and interesting than working in some other sectors, and having an engaging working life is a great way to stay happy. But above and beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, journalism and other media jobs have the power to change people's lives for the better, whether it's highlighting a social issue that needs putting right or pressuring people in charge to do the right thing. In a world full of disinformation, honest media outlets that tell the truth are more important than ever. So I'd like to congratulate you all on what you've chosen to study, and I'd like to wish you all the best in fulfilling your potential in the future. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? If you do, maybe come up to the microphone. Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Wonderful, that's good. All right, so I have two questions. One is a little practical, and the other one is a little bit on the emotional side of things. So the first is, you gave us some experience that you've had for a long time about this. My favorite one was when you had to be cutting the tapes. That's very different. Is there anything from the past era of the media space that isn't here anymore that you wished was still here? And do you think its absence has made us better, or do you think if it were still here we would have been at a better place in the media landscape on a global platform? That's the first question.
So just to answer that, I think there has actually, despite all the social media disinformation, I think there has generally been an improvement in the culture among journalists. So 30 years ago, people did a lot of things that were quite dishonest. People would, try and trap people into saying things or mislead them in order to get the story that they wanted. And I think that that's really changed. So I think that although there are a lot of bad actors out there on social media, I think among professional journalists and other media professionals, I think things have improved. I mean, certainly when I started out, people would often disappear off to the bar, halfway through a shift, that kind of thing. And that's just gone now. So the culture has really changed for the better there, I think. But, there's always things we have to not be complacent about it and always ask ourselves if there's anything more we could be doing to improve the culture, really.
Thank you. And the final question, this is the little emotional one, a little personal. But it says, have you ever doubted yourself in the media space? And have you questioned if you belonged here? And if so, your presence here means that you would have conquered that. Because you did, how did you do that?
That's a great question, because I don't know whether some of you may know that I appeared on Smile Jamaica yesterday morning, and I'll be honest with you, that was a little bit outside my comfort zone, because I'm used to I sit in an office, I'm behind the scenes, and sometimes you think, well, am I the right person to do this? And in the end, I think you just have to trust yourself, but you have to be prepared to take risks, like I said as well. Sometimes you just don't know how something's going to turn out, but it's a good thing to do anyway, because you give it a try, and you might find out that you're good at it. So in my own case, I'm not great live on air talking off the top of my head, but what I find is I love the writing. That's my favorite bit of the job. And it took me a few years to discover that was the case. So I think once I'd found that out, that's been the biggest part of my job, really, has been telling the news. And so I think, you just have to take risks and try things and find out by trial and error sometimes.
Hi, everybody. I haven't listened to the World Service in a while, so I'm not sure what the level of reporting in on from the Caribbean is like. So if you could talk about that for a minute. And then, are you looking for people from the Caribbean?
I guess one thing I didn't get into while I was speaking is the budget pressures that lots of news organisations are facing. You may know that the BBC used to have a Caribbean service. Orrin Gordon, one of the presenters, was someone I knew from work who I really admired. And unfortunately, it was a budget cut and the Caribbean service went. So we now, you can still get access to the same news from the rest of the world, but I think the truth is we just don't have as much reporting from the Caribbean, and I'm sorry about that, really. But like other big publicly funded organizations, we have to live within the amount of money that we can get. So that's one thing. I mean, we still very much do report from the Caribbean where we can. There's a guy called Nick Davis who's been long-standing correspondent. I think he reports from a variety of different countries, but he's based in Jamaica. And so when the hurricane happened earlier in the year, we did have somebody here to report on it, and we tried to get more people in as soon as we could to improve our reporting. But I think the truth is that on the big stories, we're still able to cover them well. On some of the slightly less big stories, it's hard. And in terms of getting people on air from the Caribbean, we have Neil, as I mentioned, and absolutely, we like, as far as we possibly can, to have voices from around the world represented at the World Service. And we don't do a bad job of that, but again, increasingly, you have government regulations, visa regulations, and all that sort of thing that make it a little bit more difficult than it used to be. And I must admit, that's not my specialist area, because we mostly recruit from within the UK. It doesn't mean people are always from the UK, but they are always people who have a right to work in the UK. So it's a little complicated.
I just have a kind of follow-up to that then. So in terms of how representative the World Service coverage is of the world, how have these budget constraints affected just, how much of the world and to what extent you can truly say you are the World Service?
Well, we started out in a good place, so the budget cuts have undoubtedly reduced the number of reporters and correspondents we have around the world, and I think that's a sad thing. But I think it's we can only live within the budget that we get. That said, if you've been following any of our coverage on the war in Iran, for example, we've had a lot of people in places all around the region reporting from those places and telling people stories. So we're still able to do it really well, I think. It's just a case of us adapting and changing our systems a little bit. I think the other thing, it's budgets, but then also, it's to make it a sort of fair distribution around the world is quite difficult, especially when you have so much news from the United States all the time. I don't know whether it's the same in Jamaica, but it tends to dominate. And the whole world is sometimes watching and holding its breath and wondering what's going to happen next. And for the BBC, like everybody else, it takes up a lot of our attention because it's the United States is taking up a lot of global attention at the moment. But I think we try really hard, actually, particularly for the World Service. We still have a really big audience in Africa, so we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that our coverage there is better than most other media outlets. We have more people still reporting there than most other of the big sort of international players. So hopefully that answers the question. Any others? I don't want to keep everybody from lunch.
Okay, so good afternoon. So my question is, what do you think that can be done to reduce the gap in media industries in smaller Caribbean countries and larger Caribbean countries?
That's a really good question. Yeah, because there's a massive difference really in the resources that different teams have. I know. I'm obviously not the expert particularly on within the Caribbean, but I would just say that big news organizations are increasingly having to share with other news organizations. So if somebody's been deployed somewhere, sometimes if you've deployed a camera team to cover a story, sometimes the pictures get shared and different bits of I guess you probably have. Do you have a sort of umbrella organization covering Caribbean countries for the media? CMC, yeah. Yeah. But I guess sort of sharing resources where you can is what lots of news organizations are having to do. Even in Britain, where there are lots of very kind of probably generally by comparison wealthier news organizations, quite often if somebody it's a busy day and they will phone each other and they will just agree to send one camera team to an event and then the pictures get shared across everybody, and that's just a way of saving resources. But yeah, it's definitely a problem, I know. Thanks. Any others? One final question, anybody?
Okay, so what is the difference between responsible journalism and reckless journalism when both require taking risk to reveal the truth?
That's true. That's a good question, and it picks up from something I mentioned, I know. So the taking risks, I guess taking risks doesn't mean kind of chasing around after somebody at high speed. But what it might mean is that you're going to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. So, as I'm sure everybody knows, lots of politicians don't like it when somebody gets on their case about a story. They don't like it sometimes they don't even like it if people ask them difficult questions, and they can get quite aggressive in response. And I think that that's the moment where you have to be brave. You know, you have to say, I'm here, I've got a right to be here doing my job, asking questions. You know, that is the job. And so just because some other people don't like it sometimes, you have to have the confidence of knowing that you're doing something important. And of course, at the other end of the spectrum, I guess you'll know if you're doing things. I remember I was a student with a friend of mine who I went to work for the BBC, in, as I said, in quite a low-level job to start with, and he seemed to be having a much faster career because he went to be a reporter for a tabloid newspaper. And within his first few weeks there, he was busy trying to bribe nightclub bouncers to let him know who'd come into the building and that kind of thing. And I just immediately thought, well, yeah, so you're doing great here, your career's progressing, but that's not what I'd want to be doing. I don't really want to be chasing people around, you know, making people's lives a misery who have done nothing to deserve that. And so I think that's it. It's just about in your heart and in your instincts, you will always know whether you're doing something that's kind of good journalism or not. Thanks very much. Gabrielle?
On behalf of the Department of Communication Studies at Northern Caribbean University, Mr. Steve Jackson, we want to thank you for your insightful presentation on elevated writing in public relations and journalism. We're truly appreciative of all the nooks and crannies that you would have looked at, specifically making ourselves marketable in a society or in an environment that is highly saturated. We hope that we will take all these necessary informations that you would have imparted. Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Mr. Jackson and Ms. Morrison. Just a reminder that the NCU Marketing Association is on the outside, and they have loaded nachos for $800. Sandwich, which is the combo, for $350. You get that with a juice. They have donuts for $250, cookies for $150, and juice for $200. So please support.
All right, I hope that you enjoyed this morning's session, well into the afternoon. We would have heard from some wonderful speakers. Am I right? And I hope that you would have gotten some really important information as you proceed in your journey. We've been talking a lot about that journey because life is a journey, but your professional career is also a journey. And we hope that you would have found some of that seed information to succeed at this journey of life. We just want to also thank our sponsors again. So, Nationwide News Network.
We have a Clear Water or Clear Purpose Spring Water.
The NCU Alumni Federation.
And of course, NCU Marketing Association. Without you, today would not have been possible. We also want to thank our UTech team for joining us today.
Give them a round of applause again. Thank you for joining us, and we are happy that you have come.
So we have been together under the theme, Gearing Up to Succeed, and we invite you to join us this evening at 3 p.m. for our DCS affirmation ceremony.
So, and thank you as well to those who have joined us online on our YouTube channel at NCU DCS TV as well.
And we are at the end of our program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for having us. I am your host, Carissa Shaw.
And I'm Leandre Samuels.
And we just want to say that at the end of it all, let us remember that while we gear up to succeed, to, be the best that we can be, that put God at the center of it all. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll stand and we will sing our DCS song.
Good afternoon.